The most dangerous conspiracies are rarely ever planned in dark alleys. They're usually born inside of a comfortable room where everybody already knows one another. On one summer day in the Byzantine Empire, 19 of the emperor's most trusted officials walked into public view, believing that their secrets had already been very carefully protected. By sunset, two would be dead, and the others would discover that rank could not save them, and an entire empire would be reminded that the shortest distance between power and disaster is often a single conversation. Join me today as I uncover one of the most remarkable political conspiracies in Byzantine history and the day Emperor Constantine V decided that everyone needed to watch what would happen next. August 25th of 766 began like many other days in Constantinople. It was a city where enormous churches and crowded markets and government offices and the imperial palace all existed within walking distance of one another. The Byzantine Empire was among the most sophisticated states in the world, but sophistication never guaranteed stability. Every emperor understood that the greatest danger was not always waiting beyond the frontier. Sometimes it sat quietly inside the government itself. Constantine V had already survived years of political tension and understood that the throne was never simply inherited. It had to be protected every single day. That reality shaped the decisions that he made and the people he trusted. Though, as events would soon reveal, trust could become the rarest commodity in an imperial court. When word reached Constantine that a conspiracy had formed against him, there were accusations that were astonishing. According to contemporary accounts, 19 of the emperor's highest-ranking officials had joined in this plot. These were not just obscure administrators hoping for attention either. They included senior provincial governors and men entrusted with some of the empire's most important responsibilities. At the center stood two brothers who were Constantine Propagouros and Strategios Propagouros. Constantine served as Logothetius Taudromou, which means he was basically overseeing the empire's communications and much of it the state's administration. Strategios commanded the elite team of the Imperial Guard, the regiment responsible for protecting the emperor himself. If these charges were true, then the conspiracy had reached into the very offices designed to keep Constantine alive. It was a sobering reminder that titles and uniforms and impressive offices can all wear convincing little masks and disguises. Constantine chose not to deal with the matter quietly behind palace walls. Oh, no. Instead, he transformed the entire investigation into a lesson for the whole of the empire. This man was pissed. The accused officials were marched publicly into the hippodrome of Constantinople before absolutely enormous crowds. The hippodrome had long been a place of celebration and competition and imperial ceremony, but on this occasion, it became something altogether different. Every single spectator could see what happened to men who stood accused of betraying the emperor. The message was, of course, unmistakable. Loyalty was important, authority was even more important, and betrayal carried consequences that would not remain hidden inside government corridors. History happens when leaders make decisions that echo far beyond the people standing directly in front of them. Yet beneath the spectacle was a mystery that refused to disappear. Why had these 19 men truly risked everything? So a contemporary chronicler believed that conspiracy grew from opposition to Constantine's campaign against the veneration of religious images and connected several conspirators to supporters of the monk Stephen the Younger, who had been executed the previous year. It's an explanation that has been repeated for centuries, but modern historians are far less certain of this being a fact. Many now believe that politics may have actually been every bit as important as religion, or perhaps even more so at the time. If that's true, then what appeared to be a religious struggle may have actually been a desperate contest over survival at the highest levels of imperial government. As the investigation continued, the circle of suspicion widened instead of shrinking. The prefect, my mouth is not functioning properly today. The city's prefect, Procopius, lost his office, and soon afterward, the Patriarch Constantine II also found himself implicated through the testimony from members of the clergy. He too was removed and sent into exile before later meeting an even harsher fate. Oof. Historians continue to debate exactly how much of the evidence reflected genuine participation in the conspiracy and how much emerged from the frightened witnesses trying to protect themselves. Nearly every surviving account comes from writers who strongly opposed Constantine V, making absolute certainty pretty much completely impossible. The sources preserve the outcome with some sense of confidence, but they leave the motives surrounded by questions. The uncertainty has become part of the story itself. More than 12 centuries have passed since then, but yet the conspiracy of 766 still feels remarkably familiar because it asks a timeless question. How much can any ruler truly know about the people standing closest to them? How much can anybody know about the closest people to them? Constantine V responded with overwhelming force because he believed hesitation invited absolute disaster and possibly death. Whether every punishment reflected justice or fear is something historians will likely continue debating for many, many more generations. The certainty belongs to the emperor. The uncertainty belongs to history. Sometimes the strongest throne is built on the weakest certainty, and that's a serious foundation indeed. If Constantine V intended to eliminate every single trace of this uncertainty, he discovered that history rarely grants such a luxury. After the public humiliation in the Hippodrome, the empire watched as the sentences were carried out. Every single person knew what happened. Constantine Propagouros and his brother Strategios, the two men identified as the leaders of this conspiracy, were taken to a separate area, Kynigdon, I think that's how you say it, and they were executed. The remaining conspirators were not given the same fate. Instead, they were blinded. They were sent into exile. And these are punishments that permanently removed them from political life without making them martyrs in quite the same way. It was a calculated response from an emperor who had spent much of his reign defending both his throne and his authority. Every official in Constantinople understood the message immediately. If the emperor believed that someone posed a threat, rank alone offered absolutely no protection. Yet the punishments did not end with those 19 names. Only a few days later, Procopius, the eparch of the city, was dismissed from office. Soon after, an even more surprising figure entered the story. Patriarch Constantine II, one of the highest religious leaders in the empire, found himself implicated after members of the clergy accused him of involvement in the conspiracy. He was removed from his position and sent into exile before later being executed. Whether those accusations reflected genuine participation or emerged from frightened witness hoping to distance themselves from suspicion is something the surviving evidence cannot answer. Once an investigation reaches the highest levels of government, certainty often becomes much harder to find than accusations. The uncertainty is one of the reasons historians continue returning to this story. Nearly every detailed account that survives was written by authors who opposed Constantine V, particularly because of his support for iconoclasm. Their writings preserve invaluable details, but they also carry unmistakable opinions about the emperor himself. Some portray him as ruthless, others as paranoid, while still others describe him as a capable ruler facing repeated threats against his life. And remember, all of them were pretty much against him. So who is telling the truth? Modern historians therefore approach these accounts pretty much carefully, with a grain of salt, comparing what can be confirmed with what may have been shaped by later political and religious disagreements. It's a reminder that historical sources are often witnesses rather than judges, and witnesses sometimes remember the same event very differently. The irony is that Constantine V went on to enjoy one of the longest reigns of any Byzantine Empire, ruling until 775. He remained a successful military commander, strengthened the empire's finances, reorganized its entire army, and secured many of its frontiers. Yet for many later writers, none of those achievements overshadowed the conspiracy of 766 or the severe response that followed it. A single dramatic episode became the lens through which much of his reign was remembered. History has a habit of following these moments and allowing one moment to define an entire lifetime, even when that lifetime contained so much more than the moment itself. Perhaps that's why the story today still is so important. It's not just about a failed conspiracy or an emperor that was determined to remain on his throne. It's about the fragile nature of trust, the difficulty of separating truth from accusation, and the challenge of judging people when the surviving evidence was written by those who had already strong opinions against the man they're writing about. More than 1,200 years later, we still cannot say with complete certainty exactly what motivated every person that was involved. Remember, there were 19 people. Motivations vary widely, usually when it comes to this sort of thing. Sometimes history leaves us with answers. Other times it leaves us with questions that are every bit as valuable. Even an imperial crown can't weigh more than unanswered evidence. And this is a serious balance to keep. So if you'd been one of Constantine V's closest advisors, after uncovering this conspiracy, would you have urged mercy or just to be able to calm the empire? Or would you have wanted harsh punishment to prevent the next plot from happening? Because I think it actually worked. Tell me your reasoning in the comments, because I love hearing from you guys. It's important to have that kind of a conversation when it comes to this kind of stuff. And if you enjoy random, bizarre, deep history like this, please make sure you follow the History Happens with Amanda Blackwood Facebook page for more deep dives into history's most fascinating moments. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. If you get a second, please leave a review. I love getting those reviews, and I haven't really been able to see a whole lot of them yet, but they do make my day when I get a chance to read them. So thanks for watching.